It has been a challenge. I will say, on the rail aspect, its own here in the U.S., I think we've probably been in better shape this year uh, than where we've been past couple of years. The challenge we've really seen on the rail side has been getting into Mexico, and that has certainly had an impact up into the central part of the country and into Illinois. We've had members who've been impacted, and that's not been the challenge. There has been it's not been the U.S. carriers that are having the issues. It's the Mexican railroad, which has put what's called embargoes on, and has limited our ability of the U.S. carriers to schedule trains get across the border, which has then impacted back into our NGFA member facilities who can't get trains moved or can't get trains, and that's impacting their storage. And we're continuing to see that. It's something that we have talked to the Mexican Rail FXE about. They're going to speak at our country elevator conference in December to our members, accepted our invitation, which I think is good. But it's also something that we've been talking with the current administration about, the incoming administration. We've flagged it for them, and also the Mexican government. And I think we understand some of the capacity issues they've got in Mexico and some of the challenges they have on their infrastructure. But I think the real concern we have is that it's only U.S. ag shipments that are being limited. No other sectors being impacted out of the U.S., no other sectors being impacted coming out of Mexico. It's U.S. ag. And we're not seeing just the impact going into Mexico, but when we can't get those trains moved, then it impacts your ability to go west in some instances, or it impacts your ability to get that next shuttle that maybe you need to go to the P&W to that export market. And so Mexico's where the biggest challenge is, but it ripples across the rest of the market on rail. Obviously on the rivers, the water levels have been a challenge again this year. We've got the reduced tows, we've got the reduced depth length. I would say, unfortunately, this is the third year in a row that we've dealt with this, and so, our members have adapted. They've learned how to adapt to it, but they'd prefer not to. And so, we need the good Lord to give us some rain, but then we need to make sure the Army Corps keeps the river dredged, and we think too that's why it's real important that we get, Water Resources Development Act passed, authorized. So that we can do the upgrades we need to do to this lock and dam system. Because, a number of these locks and dams on the Mississippi, the Illinois, the Ohio, a lot of them had 50-year lifespans, and they were built in the 30s, and we're still using them.
Anything that you are concerned about with the new administration coming in that may create havoc with the grain industry?
I don't think we're really concerned about anything creating havoc, and I'll say we've got a good working relationship with the current administration, but NGFA and our member companies and our association had a really good working relationship with the Trump administration in the first round, and I think we're hopeful that we'll have the same in this next round. Obviously, some things that we've talked to him about. As I mentioned, we've flagged this Mexico issue as being a challenge for us. We've got some labor regulations that are proposed that we think, quite frankly, are an unnecessary burden and make it harder for our members and producers to operate. We're hoping they'll take a look at going back, take a look at some of those things. And I think, obviously, the incoming president has made pretty clear his views on some trade areas and tariffs and that. But, he's been in office before. We've seen that. I think folks know that's coming. And, as we've talked to previous officials, as we've talked with folks associated with the transition, they've said, that there are going to be some actions, but they really view it as leverage to be able to try and get movement in some areas. And so what we're going to be looking at are there specific countries where we've had specific challenges where we think maybe we can get some help to address those. And we're also going to be looking at, and our membership's looking at, are there different countries, different regions where we can, recommend potential deals, maybe not full-blown trade agreements, but are there deals that could be met on certain commodities that could open some new markets? And so, we're going to be taking a look at the opportunity. I think the biggest challenge is just that when you've got a new administration coming in, you've got about 4,000 political appointment or seats to be filled. About 1,200 of those take Senate confirmation. That takes time. So you're going to have openings, making sure things don't get held up, things don't fall through the cracks while you're trying to get those new people in place, and then just making sure that those who are going into the key positions impacting the industry really do understand NGFA, understand what our members are doing, understand agriculture, and what the impact and the importance of those positions are for the food and ag value chain here in the U.S.